Today I'm going to give you 5 ways to instantly gain respect of your team as a newly promoted sales manager. And believe me, you're going to need every single one of them. Did you know that over 60% of newly promoted sales managers fail in their first year? That's right. More than half of people that get into management leave management in 1 year, and really does it have anything to do with having a lack of experience, a lack of a strategy, a lack of a plan, but usually everything to do with your ability to get the team to respect and follow you as a leader. And if you're stepping into a position of manager where the team has existed longer than you have, or maybe some of the people that you're managing have been alive longer than you have, then believe me, there's a high likelihood you might fall into that statistic. But you don't have to if you follow the tips that I give you in this video. And stick around to the end because the last one is definitely one of my favorites. Now, if you're new here, welcome. My name's Caleb and I currently run a sales agency, callfunnel.com, where in any given month, I'm directly responsible for $1 million to $1.5 million of cash collected. At the time of filming this video, I have over 20 salespeople that report to me on a daily basis that I meet, train, and lead to be able to help grow my client accounts. And over the last 8 years, I've worked every sales position, including building my own sales agency today, where I currently make a living. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the video as I give you the things that I'm using right now that help me get the respective teams and drive them to success. Oh, and if you like videos like this, well, go ahead and gently tap that like button so the algorithm recommends it to other sales managers like yourself. Okay, without further ado, let's go into the first way to gain respect of your sales team, and that is with having experience. Now, you don't have to have been the best salesperson in the world, but having the actual experience of a salesperson is going to be so influential for you to be able to gain and garner the respect of your team for a few reasons. One of the first thoughts that comes into the mind of a salesperson, especially when a new manager or leader comes in place, is this person someone worth listening to? And the only way to become someone worth listening to is to be able to communicate the things that they're going to care about. And the only way that you'll do that is by having lived it and being able to explain, speak to it, and allow them to see that you understand what it is that they are going through. That is what's going to build their trust in you. And trust is one of the most important parts of being a successful sales leader or manager. And this lack of experience usually is the number one thing that people hate with sales managers that they are working under. They might have an idealistic understanding or an unrealistic expectation of what the sales job actually entails. There was one point in time I had a manager who was a marketer and kind of was treating us the way that he was treating marketing. And he didn't understand that sales have sales cycles and that everyone's a one-call close, and that people need to have a certain amount of material sent to them to trust our brand before they'll make a purchase decision. But he just didn't understand why everybody wasn't buying on the spot. And that always created a level of conflict. But what was even worse is when he would look at our calls and give us some half-assed feedback around how we could have done things differently to get the sale, knowing damn well that he had never closed one of these deals in his life, and had he tried what he'd recommended in a call, it for sure wouldn't work. Or even worse, the manager that insists on forcing you to use a process that just sucks. And this process is usually one that has way too many steps, and it's very clear that it's been engineered on paper without being put into practice. And that's where just respect and trust falls apart for me as a salesperson, and where I've seen it break down on sales teams. Having somebody lead that has never done the thing and can't communicate, set expectations, or lead the team in an effective manner. Now, once more, I said it a moment ago, but you don't have to have been a top producing salesperson. You just have to have been a salesperson. When I stepped into my first management position for a sales agency a couple of years ago, I knew that I hadn't had the size of resume that maybe the typical sales manager would have. But what I did have was the experience and ability to articulate myself and comfort leading other people. And that's what allowed them to take a bet on me and believe in my ability as a leader. But I'd also done one-on-one calls with people on my account where I trained them and showed them how to sell, and then being able to see me coach in real time was a very beneficial thing. Now, not often are best salespeople great managers because they just don't have that ability to give, lead, and train and develop other people. And I happen to have a little bit of a knack for that, which is what made me stand out as a candidate in their eyes. So tip number 1 is non-negotiable if you want to be a successful sales manager, or more importantly, get the respect, which is having had experience selling to be able to communicate as someone who's been there, done that, as opposed to someone who just understands it, maybe took a program or closed 3-4 deals in their life and thinks that they're really good at sales. Okay, let's go into way number 2 to get respect to the manager, and that is with the 3-question one-on-one. Now, this is a specific strategy that I really take to heart, and I'm not saying that I pioneered it, but is one of the first things that you should do in any management position that you get into. And I want to bring this point home with a story. There was a woman that I knew that applied to get a job at Google and was was offered to be able to work as part of the company. But as part of that job, they expected her to move to another part of Europe, attend an office, and they weren't very clear on exactly what the timelines were after having made the job offer to do that, and also what she would need to be doing as well, because they hadn't even sent her a job description. Well, they did, but there wasn't really a set of tasks and how to onboard herself into the company. And aside from that, she never met her manager. There was a person who the hiring coordinator had hired her into for the team that had a manager on it, but the manager had never met with her. And somehow she was supposed to move to another part of Europe, start doing work. And all she got after accepting the offer was a, hey, what is the update on these tasks? That was the first things that she was assigned to do as a company. Now, there was no updates to give because one, she hadn't relocated, and two, she didn't know who she was answering to other than an email that she got wondering where her deliverables were and why wasn't she on meetings. And so it is so easy to mess up as a manager, and even the biggest company in the world mess up at it. But the 3-question one-on-one is by far the most effective way I've seen to prevent mistakes like this from happening and allow you to better get the respect and authority of your team. Now, what is the 3-question one-on-one? Well, every time or anytime you join a brand new team, you should meet with every single person who is under your management directly and ask them 3 questions: who they are, what their goals are, and what feedback do they have for the business that you are working for. Now, who they are, meaning where are they from? What's their story? What brought them into the business? Who are they as a person? What motivates them? Get to understand them as an individual, and maybe take a little bit of time to either share a little bit about yourself or give them some praise if they have a very admirable story, or maybe talk about things that you've observed. The second question you're going to ask them is what their goals are, which is why are they in this business? Where do they want to go? It is so important that you have a high level understanding of the desires or career trajectory for the person that you are now the manager of, but also if they see and feel that you understand where they're trying to go and can create a path for them there, well, they will immediately get on your side. One of the most important things, if you've worked as a salesperson, is being able to get other people to champion you. If they see how you can help them get a promotion, get what they want within their career, they immediately align themselves behind you because there's now an incentive for them to. And then the third question I'll ask them is what feedback do they have for the business or the account that they are working on? And this one's so important because oftentimes salespeople are burdened with inefficiencies in the process or bad strategies that just no one cares to listen to their advice on. And it's a lot like walking around with a rock in your shoe. But if you can see that there's a rock in your shoe, take the shoe off, pull the rock out, put it back on, and make it easy for them, by gosh, they will love you. But also sometimes the feedback that the individual people you're managing have is some of the easiest stuff for you to fix that will create a change inside of the business. It's an insider tip. If the employees are thinking it, but the management has never done it, and you bridge that gap and create something that the employees love and they do more and they love you as a manager, well, boom, just like that, you've built up your status, gotten the respect of the team, and are now one step closer to preventing yourself from being replaced in the typical 1 year that a sales manager does. Okay, and that takes me into way number 3, which I talked about a moment ago and I want to build upon, which is prioritize the existing constraints. Oftentimes, managers are promoted into positions where they must grow the business immediately, and there's a hard and high expectation of them to be able to move the top line. But sometimes growing a business isn't about adding new things in, but fixing the things that are already there. And so by prioritizing the existing constraints, it's going to allow you to manage your time and more effectively create a meaningful result for the business that the team and people underneath you will love, and ultimately the business will benefit from. Part of the reason why people bring managers in is that they don't know as a business what to do to fix the constraint or the level that they are at, which is why they hire you in to help them solve that. And part of solving that is going to mean coming with your own set of plans and priorities to get the business to that next level that the business didn't already have before they brought you in. Because if they had a plan to get there, then they would already be on their way. And some companies do, but the majority of them don't. So this is where listening to your team becomes really important as part of the 3-question one-on-one. If you have 20 salespeople and you find that 9 of them are telling you one thing is an issue, 5 of them are telling you another thing is an issue, and 5 of them or 4 of them are telling you this one other thing is an issue, well, you know right there what you should focus on, those 3 things. But if the business has a list of stuff that they want you to work on that doesn't map at all to what the team has said is a problem, then prioritize the thing the team says, even if it means not winning the approval of the business owner or putting or setting back a little bit of the timelines. Because oftentimes as a newly promoted manager, you will have a lot of say and influence with the people that just hired you because they want your opinion and your input. And so for you to change the priorities to something that is going to be more advantageous compared to following what they want is something that's going to set you apart and once more set you up for success. Now, The types of things you should prioritize are things that will unblock your team's productivity. Let me give you a concrete example because sometimes it's hard to understand this. Let's say you're working in a business where there's not an auto dialer or a power dialer and everybody is having to call their leads one at a time. And everybody on the team says that, hey, if we had a power dialer or a proper CRM, it would be amazing. Believe it or not, there's businesses that don't even have that. I spoke to a woman today who worked as a salesperson for a bank where they had to call every person one by one when they're getting hundreds of leads every single day. Absolutely ridiculous that some companies aren't that developed. But I say this to say, if the company that you're hired for wants you to increase the cash per call, but the salespeople want a power dialer, which one do you focus on? The productivity and performance of your team, because if the cash per call doesn't increase, but more calls come on the calendar, the business will grow, and more importantly, you will allow there to be more future efficiency, and you'll solve the thing that's a priority of those you are leading, which will make them like you that much more. Another example for you. Let's say you step into a business where they want you to do call reviews of the closers and train them. When in reality, your appointment setters have maybe a 40% show rate and all the salespeople are complaining that the appointments coming on the calendar just aren't showing or aren't good enough. Well, your priority should immediately be not training the salespeople, but focusing on the appointment setters. Now, there hasn't been an instance where I've stepped into a business where that's necessarily the case when it comes to their metrics, but I digress. Sometimes you will see that there is an alignment between what the sales team wants and what the upper management wants, and that's when you're kind of fitting in there perfectly, but oftentimes there isn't, or there's things that go missed. So bottom line, before you add a new system into the business as a sales manager, fix the existing systems that are going to allow your team to be more productive and focus on prioritizing what's important for the people that you are going to be leading, so continue to follow you as a leader. Okay, now let's go into way number 4, that you will gain respect as a sales manager. And this is by having the right mindset. Now, I don't mean manifesting and sitting and journaling. I'm talking about the way that your team sees you operate and the way that you carry yourself as an individual. This is by far one of the most important ones to gain respect of your team, because if they see that you as a manager are all in and setting the standard of what is expected, they are more likely to fall and rally behind that. But more importantly, A players love working with A players, and that means you have to be one yourself in all regards. Showing up on time, answering questions on time, being attentive, putting effort and energy into your meetings, preparing, reviewing calls, giving feedback, offering insight, being the first person to react, the first person to show up to meetings, always on time. The little things all add up. If you are very passive and blasé-faire as a manager, your team will immediately see that and take that as a sign to check out or that they can ease up, and they're going to match the energy and cadence for what you come with. And your top players are going to be more motivated to go to another business where the culture is more in their favor or set up in the way where there's the type of competition that they're looking for, compared to being the sales manager that is on top of your team, not in the micromanager, but in that motivational leader, coach, driving them to excellence and inspiring them to do more in a day. That is the mindset that you must have. And this will show up in the way that you communicate, because there will be times that your numbers slow down, things pull back. I talk about it in one of my other videos, how to succeed as a manager, I talk about it in one of my other videos you can see up here, depending on where you're watching it. But you must have a certain level of optimism for what's to come, a place that you are going, a mindset that is betting and banking on the future and seeing the people that you have as the path or the way to get there. Some of my most profitable days with the sales teams that I've run have come after a very intense sales meeting where I'm very inspirational, giving to the team and showing them the level of commitment that I have because I prepared, I have thoughts, I have notes, and I have a message that is meaningful to incite greatness into them. And they can see by the way I respond to their messages and the way I write in the chat that we are going somewhere and that this is just a moment in time. Imagine you're a parent and your child is watching you. How much do you think your child decides how they're going to be based off of your behavior? They're watching you constantly. They're seeing the way that you think, the way that you solve problems, the way that you handle stress, and they're using that to kind of not only teach themselves, but see, hey, okay, this is how we handle things, this is the culture, and that is the same for you as a sales manager. People will talk behind your back as well, believe it or not. If they think you're a bad manager, boy, that will spread quickly. I've definitely been a part of sales teams where there was gossip, and so what does that gossip look like? And are you gossiping as a sales manager too? So your mindset is so important on many different levels. Now, one of the things that I recommend that you do to help your team see and understand this is that you communicate to them on a regular basis that you are my highest priority. Never hesitate to huddle me, write me, call me, anything you need. I will drop everything that I have to get you a response in that moment so you can get what you need to get the deal through. If it's a contract, if it's a payment link, if it's an answer to a question, if it's a resource, if you need me to hop on a call, let me know. I am there at your disposal. Believe it or not, I've had reps where I've answered huddles at 11:30 at night to make a contract that we send and get signed at 12. And I'm dead tired, wanting to leave and start my next day, but they got what they need to get that deal over the line and the cash is collected, and they now have more commission as a result of me being there for them. That is the kind of mindset that you must have if you want your team to respect you, is that you are the last person to leave and the first person to show up each and every single day. Okay, now let's go into the fifth way that you can gain respect of your sales team as a newly promoted manager, and that is live practice. Live practice, live practice. And what I mean by that is, as much as you can, do an example of the thing you want them to do live. If there's a specific line or objection handle you want them to try or use in a call, practice it live. There's a specific way you want them to open their calls, practice it live. If there's a new way that you want the set calls to sound or the frame to be set, practice it live. If you want them to overcome an objection that everyone seems to struggle with, practice it live. One of the best things that you can do as a sales manager is, in front of the entire team, you be the salesperson overcoming whatever it is or demonstrating whatever it is and how it should be done. The ability to put yourself on the table like that and show them how it's done not only gets them the respect because they see that you can do it, but they also see the example that you set by volunteering in front of everybody, and it makes what you're trying to explain crystal clear because they've just seen it in practice. You can have a dialogue on it. And so I cannot explain that there's nothing, very rarely anything more impactful than just doing and training the behavior live in front of the entire team. I've had times in front of teams of 20 plus salespeople at one given time, I will do an objection overcome. And they will throw me a hard one the same way that they get it on the call. I will tell them, fight hard, be as difficult as you want, and let's overcome it. And it's usually at the back end of those that we see some of the best calls after that because they use some of the lines of the language that I gave them that day. Another very important part of that is you can unlock limiting beliefs that salespeople have around the types of people that they are dealing with. Because if they bring you the concern the way that they were given it, and they are just as difficult as the customer that they had, and you were able to overcome it, and they can see and feel that change internally, they now have a new mindset and perspective that will then motivate them to go out there and attempt to overcome those concerns next time. And not only do you overcome it for that person, but you overcome it for everybody that's watching. You either reinforce the belief for those that didn't have it and give the belief to those that needed it. And that's how powerful practicing things in front of everyone are live. And it is something that most managers are so afraid to do, believe it or not. I've had sales managers that don't want to do sales calls, or if they do, they just make a total fool of themselves because they're just doing things that are so unrealistic or that I immediately know are just pulling it out of a hat and they can get away with it because it's a sales team meeting where no one wants to make the manager look bad. But that's why I encourage you to, in the meetings, be as raw and real in your practice as possible. And if you're practicing with the team, don't be any easier. Set the expectation that, hey, this is actual practice. This is where we develop the skills to be able to get better so we can make money on the field. And if you can't overcome it here, how are you supposed to overcome it there? Okay, so bringing it all home, the 5 ways to gain respect to the newly promoted manager. The first one is going to be having experience as a salesperson. You don't have to have been a top producer, but you need to have had some experience actually selling, so that way you're the manager that's talking from experience and not talking from ideas. The second, the 3-question one-on-one. Who you are, what are your goals, what are the problems or feedback that you have from me stepping into this business that's going to help us succeed, which takes me into prioritize the existing constraints before other projects. Allow your team to be more productive, fix the things that they've been dealing with as problems for a long time, and watch them like you more as a result of that because their day is now less painful. Which takes me to point number 4, having the right mindset. Once you've got the trust of your team, you need to show up consistently and have the right mindset around the work and the way that they need to be thinking and be as responsive as possible so that way they see that you are leading by example and not just taking the back seat. Which takes me to point number 5, and which is the best way to gain respect as a newly promoted manager, which is demonstrate behavior live. Practice and do real role plays and objection handles in front of the team so they can see that not only how to overcome it, but they can see that you know how to do it and that you can handle real things, that they could trust you to produce and put revenue on the table, especially if you're stepping into a position where you've never sold the product or service for the team that you are leading. So there you have it, the exact process to gain respect as a newly promoted manager. Now, if you're curious on what the 5 most common challenges you'll face outside of respect and how to overcome them, well, go ahead and check out this video either right here or here on the screen because I break it down in there. And I'll see you in the next one.